Story 1. Childcare. Every country wants people to have many children, but almost no country provides the necessary infrastructure. Story 2. Rest. Society glorifies burnout and calls it ambition. Story 3. Society claims to value kindness and honesty. In reality, it often rewards power, status, and appearance more than genuine character. Story 4. In the United States, education receives a lot of lip service but little real support. It functions more as free daycare for children aged 5 to 17. Story 5. Freedom of speech. Most people who support it are opposed to hearing opinions they do not agree with. Story 6. Artists. Society admires famous artists but looks down on blue-collar working artists, which is what most of us are. We create the visuals and soundtracks of people's lives anonymously. Story 7. The safety and well-being of children. If this were truly valued, Medicaid, food stamps, and free school lunches for children in poverty would not continue to be cut. The phrase "won't anyone think of the children" is just a political talking point. Story 8. A green lawn achieved with chemicals is harming the environment. There are no benefits to a perfectly green lawn. If you are seeking clout from neighbors, rethink your priorities. Story 9. Integrity. We all buy from large corporations that sell poor products. We elect people who are charismatic but dishonest. Having worked in sales for the last 10 years, I have found that most customers will accept a deal that is too good to be true 9 times out of 10. Story 10. Christian societies promote Christian values. Muslim societies promote Muslim values. Many other religions do the same. Often, religious values are used as an excuse for actions that contradict those values, including harmful or horrible behavior. Story 11. Save the children except when the perpetrator is rich and famous, a friend, a member of the clergy, a teacher, or a politician. Story 12. Loyalty, especially at work, is seldom rewarded. More often it is exploited. Socially, there are few consequences for disloyalty. Story 13. The Constitution. We have been tricked into placing greater importance on symbols rather than on the underlying principles they embody. Story 14. Manners. Being polite and courteous costs nothing but seems to have been lost along the way. Story 15. Protect your mental health. Avoid employee assistance programs at all costs. Be cautious of backstabbers. Story 16. Merit. The right tried to pretend they cared about it, but then put a number of drunks, criminals, and influencers into important positions as soon as they gained power. The left does not have the greatest track record with merit either. Story 17. Human life. Look how we just move on after various events. Mass gun shootings, blasting Venezuelan boats out of the water, Gaza, Ukraine, Sudan. Now, if we saw a murder right in front of us, yes, trauma, but as long as it is anywhere else, we move on. Story 18. Values. It is increasingly obvious that money is the only thing that matters to too many people. Story 19. Education. Actually, society pretends to value it for people who do not have it, but then dismisses it for people who do. That is why we hear, doctors are in it for the money. They do not really want you healthy. In the same conversation as, how do you know vaccines work? You are not a doctor. Story 20. For many Christians, it is the 10 Commandments. Those who most insist it be posted in schools are often the ones who break those commandments the most, especially the second commandment. Although they claim to love God, they often do things that anger Him. They frequently say they act in His name, but in reality they are using His name in vain out of vanity, which violates the second commandment. Story 21. I was going to say disabled people, but then I remembered that society does not even pretend to value us. Story 22. Personality over appearance. Personality is an important personal attribute, but a repulsive appearance combined with a winning personality is not a recipe for success. Story 23. We talk a good game, but our country does not value children and older people. Story 24. Hard work. In this country, people often respect wealth and assets more than effort. An influencer who benefited from nepotism and inherited a trust fund will be treated with more respect by many Americans than people who genuinely work hard. As Bill Maher said, the true God in America is the old mighty dollar. Story 25. They value empathy but call out kindness when it is misused, asking, why care for them so much? Story 26. Men's mental health is often discussed superficially. People pay lip service to it but will not examine their own actions that contribute to the problem because it is difficult and offers no social benefit. Story 27. Children. What passes for education in the United States is a joke, but no one is laughing. Story 28. Work-life balance. Every company says they care about your well-being until you actually try to use your paid time off or log off at 5. Then suddenly you are not a team player. Story 29. The earth is being disrespected by most people. Guess what? You are all stuck on it, so you'd better wise up. Story 30. If any political party actually cared about family values, there would be paid vacation, a living wage, free or very low-cost, high-quality daycare, truly universal health care, and adequate disability income. Story 31. We talk a big game about children, yet people are willing to let them suffer because they say their parents should not have had them if they could not afford them. Children have no control over that. Story 32. Why has nobody mentioned children? In the United States, no one seems to care how many die. People just send their prayers and move on. Story 33. Free speech. No, not the First Amendment. Free speech is the moral principle that speech should be free. It usually means encouraging people to share ideas you disagree with, and if you have a platform, allowing others to access it even when you disagree. The First Amendment is a law that provides some free speech protections. Your actual support for free speech equals how much you want other speech allowed minus the protections the First Amendment already guarantees. For too many young people, that sum is 0 or negative. Story 34. The harder you work, the more others expect you to do. Story 35. Free press, free speech, and democracy in the West are abandoned quickly when it is convenient. The idea that Western countries encourage democracy abroad is false. We form alliances with and support dictators and sabotage democracies. Story 36. Human interaction has declined. Since coronavirus disease 2019, technology oligarchs have promoted contactless transactions, resulting in virtually no human interaction. This is terrible for society, yet people celebrate when a tech executive's net worth increases by another billion. Story 37. The rule of law. Many people do not understand the concept of blind justice. Story 38. In the United States, what we value these days is human work. In the most basic terms, if human life has value, why aren't we paying for it? Why aren't we offering healthcare simply for living, to preserve its inherent value? These things are tied to work, not to life. Story 39. Hard work does not guarantee reward. You can work your butt off and receive little or no reward unless you are in the right place at the right time to cash in. It is luck. Story 40. Human life. If life were so precious, we would not enforce a system where everyone who wants to live must pay. Story 41. Emotional openness. People say they value it until it inconveniences them or until your emotions do not match what others expect in your situation. Story 42. Parents in general. Mothers in particular. Children. Teachers. Education. Facts. Cooperation. Story 43. Expertise and competence, particularly under this administration. Story 44. Family. For all the reasons already listed, this can lead to burnout. Public spaces are often not designed for children. I would add children's sports. They are healthy to promote and create great friendships, but they also reduce family time, with practices almost daily and games on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If you have multiple children, good luck. You will hardly see your spouse. Story 45. People who do vital work to maintain society include farm workers, food processing workers, people who perform reproductive labor, child care workers, elder care workers, and disability care workers. People who make luxury goods are treated much better than those who work to produce food or to raise the next generation. Story 46. Environment. People with disabilities, older adults, discrimination, people living in poverty. Mental health. People experiencing homelessness. Story 47. Fake religion. If all were honest, we would admit the real religion in the United States only comes in the color green. Story 48. Humility and selflessness mean caring for others. We are ultimately ego-driven, based on our own self-interest. Story 49. I do not think there is anything society pretends to value but does not. Any such claim would be a generalization. Many people pretend to value things, but in general society values what it values. The problem is not society. The problem is that the people who lead our society, business leaders, politicians, and the wealthy, are not willing or are unable to make the changes necessary to fix the gap between what society says it values and what we actually show appreciation for. For example, teachers are valued and respected, and their work is difficult. Yet teachers remain underpaid and often must purchase school supplies from their own paychecks. Story 50. Families. Everyone says the next generation is important and that we should respect people raising a child, yet some get annoyed when parents bring their child to a restaurant. Should families isolate themselves from society so they do not annoy others? We need to include families more in society. Story 51. Many companies, including Bell, claim to care about mental health, but their actions say otherwise. Story 52. Everybody says how much they love and value teachers, yet I make more in my current retail job than I ever did teaching. Story 53. Intelligence. People dislike feeling unintelligent. They would rather have their biases confirmed than learn something new. Story 54. Teachers. Everybody pays lip service to how important they are, yet nobody wants to give them more money, resources, or support. Story 55. Honesty. Rest. Mental health. Caring for family members, both young and old. Story 56. Everyone wants peace and harmony with open borders until reality sets in. Immigrants need food, shelter, clothing, money, and other basic necessities. Story 57. Music is, at best, a pleasant distraction, but there is no way we will allocate educational resources to teach children music. Story 58. People. Originally I was going to say children, but honestly we do not care about anyone. Story 59. Rights. I have noticed that many people regard rights in a situational way. They protect things they like, some of which are rights, and allow interference with things they dislike regardless of whether that violates the rights they claim to uphold. Republicans often emphasize religious rights because they favor Christianity, while other religions receive short shrift. Democrats strongly support free speech and due process, but they act as if those principles do not apply when the issue involves guns. Story 60. People say children are important, yet they support policies that endanger them or make their lives harder. Story 61. Many people protest whenever something is deemed inappropriate for children. Do they care as much about orphans, education, healthcare, or sports? Story 62. Thoughts and prayers do not make up for murdered children. This statement is sarcastic. Story 63. Children. You'll see hundreds of protesters outside Planned Parenthood, but no concern once the child is born and living in poverty or bouncing between foster homes. When an issue requires more effort than hearing yourself speak, everyone disappears. Story 64. Work. Everyone hates their jobs and bosses. They may not dislike their coworkers or roles, but they feel a constant dread about work. Yet we glorify overworking and push people into the most miserable positions in the name of production. Story 65. In South Africa, living people are often neglected. Funerals and memorials receive far more attention and expense than was given to the person while alive. People sometimes avoid simple burials, calling them embarrassing, and even buy new clothes for corpses. Often someone whose needs, especially mental health, were ignored, while alive people may emphasize a person's faults and create conflicts that undermine their ability to live peacefully in society. When that person dies, everyone expresses love and praise. There is feasting, drinking, and a sudden readiness to gather and spend time together, despite being too busy when the person was alive. Death and the dead are often valued more than the living. Story 66. Teachers. We acknowledge how demanding and important the profession is, but teachers are still not paid adequately. Story 67. Socially useful jobs. Teachers, caregivers for the elderly, nurses, and cleaners of public spaces. Remember who the essential workers were during the coronavirus disease 2019 pandemic? How many of those are paid well? Story 68. Most things are paid for by the government. If society valued them, people would pay for them without taxes being extorted. Story 69. Workers. The best example is how workers were treated as essential to the economy and society during the coronavirus disease 2019 pandemic, yet were not paid more and were often put at risk of dying from the disease. Story 70. Education. We treat teachers like shit and would rather build football stadiums. Story 71. Regarding children, I cannot speak for other countries, but I am confident that most Americans who are parents should not be. Story 72. Being yourself sounds great on paper, but when people meet the real you, the one who eats shredded cheese from the bag over the sink at 2 a.m. like a sad raccoon, they become unsure. Story 73. In the United States, if we truly valued teachers, teaching would be a competitive profession and teachers would be paid well. Story 74. Performing arts. Everyone loves movies, but many dislike the idea of attending college to study acting. Story 75. For mental health care, getting an appointment with a psychiatrist, psychologist, or licensed counselor can take many months unless you are in immediate danger to yourself or others. Story 76. Mental health. Everyone says it's okay not to be okay, but the moment you actually struggle, people start to disappear. Story 77. Work-life balance. I constantly hear about it from work podcasts, LinkedIn posts, and even during job interviews. It is a joke in the United States, especially when you face pushback for taking paid time off. My brother's former employer would demand a doctor's note while failing to provide health insurance, so you were expected to pay for care and supply the note. What the heck? Story 78. After spending a lot of time in Brazil and seeing how close-knit family units are and how the state provides for families and parents, the United States seems inadequate by comparison. In the United States, families are treated as secondary to work, profits, and consumerism, despite everyone saying it's everything. Story 79. Children's well-being is often framed as a debate about how best to control children. Story 80. Found family. How many stories do we tell where the moral is that people who love and accept you are more important than people who are related to you? But when the chips are down, the legal systems and public opinion almost always favor deoxyribonucleic acid over anything else. Story 81. Many people say they want to be healthy, but junk food consumption is encouraged by advertising aimed at children. Story 82. In the United States, I thought we hated pedophiles and prosecuted them. But if you are rich or powerful, it is not only a crime but is encouraged. Story 83. Hard work. More often than not, it just gets you taken advantage of. Story 84. Children. At least in America, people seem to downright hate children. They're so precious. Yeah, Linda, can we raise taxes to fix a school from 1955? Or can you not drive 50 miles per hour through a park? Or stop judging children constantly for being children? When people say back in my day, what they mean is that adults used to leave kids alone. You could do things and adults left you alone. Nowadays, if a kid does a stupid Fortnite dance or TikTok nonsense, adults just will not stop complaining about how they were better as kids. No, you were not. Story 85. Art, artists, and anything handmade are truly dying out, which is especially sad in our current economy. Many artists leave their work for traditional jobs just to afford food. When you go vintage shopping or see old buildings, much of what you find features handmade, eccentric design that is increasingly rare. Artists are often not valued for their time, undersell their work to survive, and are criticized for not working fast enough, even though art can take 200 hours or more to complete. Artists create music and design, breathe life into their work, and resist relentless optimization and corporate greed. They are often inventors. Without them, music, dance, sculpture, painting, design, and innovation would suffer. Many blue-collar trades are also forms of art, including welding, engineering, and architecture. Story 86. Saying I appreciate it without having the slightest idea what it means. Story 87. We call children the future, yet we subject them to trauma, malnutrition, poisoning, and other harms, then act surprised when they grow into troubled adults. It is mind-boggling. Story 88. Self-reflective moral accountability. Most people claim God makes them a good person. It is pathetic that humans with free will can choose to be good or bad, yet some give their agency away to an unconfirmed, all-powerful elderly man in the sky who will forgive their bad choices if they pray their actions away. I reject the idea that only weak people are religious. Spiritual people do not need a higher power to be good or to choose a better way because they hold themselves accountable for wrongs and grow, instead of sinning flippantly because God will forgive them if they pray. Story 89. The Bible. Seriously, people who claim to be the most religious often ignore its teachings. Story 90. Mental health. Everyone says mental health matters. Companies, politicians, and schools all post about it. But the second you actually need a day off or admit you are struggling, people treat you as if you have broken a rule. Society loves the idea of caring, the hashtags, and the awareness days, but not the reality of making space for people who are not okay. We say it is okay to not be okay, but what we really mean is please be okay again soon. Story 91. Heroism. If people want something in a capitalist society, they will pay for it. We do not pay heroes. By the way, this is a good litmus test. If a capitalist society is willing to pay for something, it shows the society values it. Otherwise, it does not. Story 92. According to someone who is no longer with us, the lives of school children are a small price to pay for Second Amendment freedom. Story 93. Everyone cries, think of the children. Yet children are regularly treated as property or blank slates to be molded, with no agency, personality, or inherent right to respect. Story 94. If we truly cared about ourselves, we would not trash the earth. It is driven by economics and ego, not by love for ourselves. Story 95. Politeness is often just a mask for passive aggression. Laughing out loud. Story 96. Yeah, but calling it communism is a bit of a generalization and a misuse of the term. I don't know what communism means academically, linguistically, or in any concrete form, but I love communist waifus in military uniforms, and that is something I will always support. Story 97. They do not feed, clothe, educate, vaccinate, or house children, but they do want them born. Story 98. Empathy. What do you mean I am supposed to care about others as a child, and then when I get older I am supposed to stop? Story 99. Honesty. Child safety. Morals. Equality. Little stuff like that. Story 100. Monogamy. Not everyone believes in it, but almost everyone prefers to appear as if they do. Story 101. Equality is valued only by those who feel they have less. If everyone in the world were equal, they would have much less than they do now. Story 102. Rehabilitation, justice, honesty, fairness, diversity, equality, ethics. Story 103. Honesty. People achieving the American dream with equal opportunity may provoke jealousy. Story 104. People say everyone is equal except for some. Whether we admit it or not, this is the truth. There is always a group or several left behind for not fitting the quota of equality. Story 105. Morality and principles. Far too often, it is a superficial, empty sentiment used to hold others back and control them while those who promote it pillage and capitalize. I hate how much it harms those who truly believe in moral principles and stand by them even when it is inconvenient. Story 106. In this country, people fly flags and stand for the military at sporting events. Most people are awful citizens and don't know basic facts. They will not inconvenience themselves to participate or use simple critical thinking when faced with discomfort. Most people engage only in token actions, virtue signaling, and feel reactive emotions about what they dislike. Story 107. Freedom. Children have already been mentioned and are another great choice. So many people are up in arms about feeding breakfast and lunch to children at school. Story 108. People say teachers are the children's second parents and are crucial to their development. In my country, teachers are paid very little and do not receive compensation commensurate with their work. When people are paid fairly, they are more likely to do their jobs well. Story 109. In a capitalist society, people say they love children and call them the cornerstone of society. The more the merrier, they say, because society needs more workers. But the same society asks, if you want children, how much time will you need to care for them and when can you return to work? Do not expect society to pay for your decision. In fact, you will be expected to pay. Story 110. Truth, justice, the opinions of anyone making less than 8 figures per year. Story 111. Many people claim to value diversity, but most socialize with others who share their interests, background, or ideologies. Few people socialize with others because they are different. Story 112. The working class is all platitudes. I equate it to how the Soviet Union held up the worker as the end-all and be-all while elevating the wealthy on their backs. Story 113. Probably honesty, especially when we look at politicians. Story 114. Let's see. Honesty, intelligence, love, relationships, sex, children, money, and health. Basically everything our society was built around are not truly valued. These things are often taken for granted, misused, or treated as symbols of image and status rather than used for their intended purpose. Story 115. Authenticity. The reality is be the kind of person who gets on with everyone and does not have strong views. Show your work and perhaps get passionate about one topic or champion one cause once a year that is not too contentious. That way you show you care without scaring people and you are considered authentic. I have seen musical artists sing that their music is inauthentic, admitting they make up what they think will be popular. Because the video was shot on a phone in their apartment, it is widely deemed authentic. That is ludicrous. Story 116. In the United States, military service is publicly celebrated. Everyone loves to wave flags, but when it comes to funding the Department of Veterans Affairs, providing jobs, or treating service members respectfully instead of using them as political props, it is a no-go. Some people think Bruce Springsteen's song Born in the United States is about lack of support for Vietnam veterans. It is not. It is about the long-standing abuse of veterans that is a tradition in the United States. Story 117. Veterans. Sure, we will stand them up at a sporting event so everyone can cheer, but will we fund and administer the Department of Veterans Affairs properly? Oh fuck no. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.